We're here at the Innisbrook Resort in Palm Harbor, Florida, near Tampa. And so why not call my homeboy Eric Deggans, a television critic for the Tampa Times. Eric, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? How you doing?
All good. Now, we're always talking on this show about television shows and always trying to support those that feature African Americans because, frankly, they are few and far between.
That's right.
And this has been a pretty interesting second season with shows like Scandal that have really gotten a lot of African Americans excited. Kerry Washington, Columbus Short, you know, using Judy Smith, if you will, as sort of the example for this crisis PR expert.
Exactly, exactly. And Scandal did just well enough that ABC is going to bring it back. ABC loves Shonda Rhimes, the woman who created the show. Probably the most powerful black woman in television now. She has Grey's Anatomy, she has Private Practice, now she has Scandal. Scandal's coming back in the fall. And there's another show on ABC called Last Resort, starring Andre Braugher. So ABC will have two shows starring African Americans, more than any network.
How are the other networks looking? I remember, of course, when NBC had Undercover and they had other different shows, did not do well at all, didn't last long. And so how is the Peacock network looking when it comes to African Americans for fall television?
Well, right now, the big shows that have African American representation, there's a show called Guys with Kids, where Anthony Anderson is one of three guys who has kids, and they're kind of hanging out and they're being dads and being stupid. And then Giancarlo Esposito is also the bad guy in a show called Revolution, and it's about what happens in the world if suddenly all the power were to stop. So you couldn't run your computers, you wouldn't have lights. It's instantly back to the
folks would lose their mind.
Exactly, exactly. But there is one place where there is electricity, and why? You know?
Okay.
So Giancarlo Esposito is kind of like a tyrannical bad guy, and he from what I've seen from the clip, he's great in it.
It's very interesting that CBS doesn't really push Taraji Henson a lot when it comes to point of interest. And so I get people all the time who say, hey man, why aren't you tweeting about that show? And really a lot of times, I forget, because here's somebody Oscar nominated who's really not positioned as a dominant character on that show.
Yeah, you know, it's weird. You know, you see her public comments on this show, Person of Interest on CBS. It's doing well, and it's going to be featured on Thursday nights. But I think she was originally told she'd be a co-lead, that there would be three leads on the show. But the way it's worked out is that she's a supporting player, and the two other guys who lead the show are actually the stars. And you know, I've got to think she feels a little disappointed. I know her fans feel disappointed. They expected to see more of her on that show, but they treated her. You know, I did a story about the Black Best Friends on television, that was in the Tampa Bay Times and in the Washington Post, and she fits that bill perfectly. Somebody who probably should be a star, but unfortunately she's a supporting player.
How about Fox? Anything for us?
How is Fox doing? Well, I haven't had a chance to look at all of Fox's programming, but my sense is that their new stuff, you know, again, they have a supporting player here, a supporting player there, nobody who stars in anything. And that's what's happened a lot. You know, there's a press for diversity, but I sense a hesitancy to center a show on a person of color. CBS has a new show, retelling of Sherlock Holmes called Elementary, and Watson is Lucy Liu, who's obviously Asian American. So they have diversity, but putting people of color in that starring role, that's still the glass ceiling.
Well, I'll tell you what I keep saying is that, first of all, we are changing as a country when it comes to demographics. And the bottom line is, I keep saying, whether it's cable news, whether it's broadcast television, the television is still the last bastion in terms of not fully embracing where this country is moving and shifting, whether it's African Americans or Latinos.
I think you're absolutely right. And what we're seeing is select showrunners like Shonda Rhimes and Sean Ryan, who's doing Last Resort that I told you about with Andre Braugher. They're deciding very sort of subtly to say, we're going to put people of color in starring roles. When Sean did Chicago Code on Fox, if you remember that.
Which I loved.
Amazing show.
I hated that show was canceled.
I know. I couldn't believe it. And it was very close. It almost came back. But Delroy Lindo played a Chicago alderman. That character was supposed to be Irish.
Right.
And Sean decided to cast Delroy Lindo because he's an amazing actor, and it just so happens that he's black.
Well, I'll tell you what, though. I know we got to close now, but cable's doing, I think, better with that. Michael Ealy has a new show on USA. Also, Sanaa Lathan is going to be on Boss. And so I think, you know, again, when you talk about African Americans who are in Hollywood, cable seems to be the place where they're getting a lot more shots to be able to show what they do.
cable loves especially black women, and we're going to see a lot of unscripted
So do we.
shows. Yeah, well, we do too. Exactly. But cable is finding new ground. You
Right.
know, black women control the purchasing decisions in their house. There's going to be a lot more shows featuring them, especially unscripted, in the months to come.
That's part of the reason why when Oprah's network on first debuted, you virtually had no African Americans, didn't do well. All of a sudden, you see Beverly Johnson yelling at Van Zandt. So even Oprah had to figure out black women do watch television.
There you go.
Eric Deggans, always a pleasure, man. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.